itself.
I'm not sure.
That is classic Keith.
I'm
to
still
trip
confused.
over one wire and manage to bring down the whole system. Or whatever.
I know, right? It's like everything just got completely jacked up somehow.
If revolutions could go for countries as easily as it did for you tripping over one fucking wire.
It's like, why is my microphone outside right now?
I'm surprised you caught it because I just would have kept talking.
Oh, well, I'm not even sure how you said googly eyes. That's what.
I fucked it up with the googly eyes.
We had we got the serious googly eyes going on. All right. So
googly eyes.
All right. Enough of that silliness.
All right. Just do the introduction just like you did.
All right. So, I've been watching this news feed from, I think it's early last week. And you've got this guy, Ned Price, from the State Department. And he's talking about the Russians are going to produce this crazy film.
Yeah.
With bad actors in it and some other crazy stuff, destroying military vehicles and stuff like that. And what I found most interesting was when he was asked about how'd you come about this information, or what the information was about, or where there was no proof of it. And when he did say proof, it was like, well, I just said it. So I'm kind of.
Yeah. Well, his big thing that I saw with that is he basically said, well, it came from this previously declassified information. Well, it got super awkward because the news guy or whatever was asking the question, said, hey, I've been doing this for a long time. You could tell that he was asking, is there show me where that information was? In other words, show me like a link to the previously declassified information that you're basing this off of. Because the guy asked the question, simple question was like, you're using things like terms like crisis actors.
Oh yeah, that's very specific.
Then the journalist says something about this is straight out of Alex Jones.
Okay.
Because
I like Alex Jones
also uses things like the terms crisis actor.
Oh gosh, you think it was Alex Jones that's setting all this up?
Well, no, I'm just saying crisis actors, meaning like it's somebody that's doing some kind of, in this case,
it's Hollywood,
like a state-sponsored video or whatever. It's a staged event. Is where you use the term crisis actor.
Yeah, exactly. And that sort of thing too. It's like,
the government totally disavowed anything, like they were like mocking the term crisis actor. So it's funny that now you have somebody from the State Department that's now using the term crisis actor when they're talking about Russia, right? I mean, and it's like, let's not point fingers about anything, but let's go back to Kennedy and Operation Northwoods, which was a supposedly staged event. The, Bay of Pigs invasion, the Gulf of Tonkin from Vietnam.
Oh, that
rings a lot of bells about like us staging events. The weapons of mass destruction in Iraq that I fought in that war. Right.
Yeah.
America's not, let's get off our high horse there for a second. About like staging said events to basically initiate a war with another country. Right.
Yeah.
I would like to know the big picture. I would like to know what the outcome is why are we so vested in Ukraine?
Well, I think there's a lot of reasons why we are vested in you. I mean, actually, I think the better questions would be is why for many, many years has the U.S., Europe, NATO been pumping money into the Ukraine, which I mean, Ukraine is probably, what is it, like the second largest country out of that block. And then on top of that, I think their GDP might be only like maybe 100. And let's just say, I could be wrong. Again, look these things up. I think Ukraine's GDP is only like maybe 158 million. Let's just say 200 million.
Yeah.
Billion. Sorry, not million, billion.
Well, that's my point is.
And that's kind of pushing it. But the U.S. and other countries are pumping at least a quarter of their GDP into them for defense. And so what are we defending against exactly?
Well, that's what I'm asking. Okay. When the Soviet Union fell, right, basically Russia went tits up. and all these, former Russian republics broke off, right? I understand, like, it's always been a NATO thing versus like a Warsaw Pact thing. Russia and its supporters were like Warsaw Pact, whatever.
No, and you know what?
Cold War stuff.
I fully understand. I fully understand NATO, and I fully understand Warsaw. I understand why they have those groups, which makes sense.
Well, in the military, we call it establishing a foothold, right? So in other words, if you go into a combative action, right, you want to run to the closest building in some complex that you're fighting in Iraq or whatever, you establish a foothold. It's a jumping off point for further actions. So we want something as close to the action as possible that we can secure and we can maintain for ourselves. Yeah. It's called establishing a foothold, right? It's a tactic.
Yeah. Why would you not?
Is the Ukraine a foothold? Like, in other words, we feel like we can get a foot into, it's like the Cuban missile crisis, right? Russia liked Cuba and threatened to put nuclear weapons on Cuba because it's 90 miles off the coast of Florida.
Yeah.
Right. We, in turn, what nobody ever talks about is the fact that at the same time we were putting missiles in Turkey pointed towards Russia because we also wanted that same distance close to them.
Well, right? I think that might be Russia's argument right now is the fact that we're placing missile systems extremely close to them.
Well, that's.
But it's not explaining the troop buildup that they're doing.
We've creeped up on them and started getting things. For everything that they've done, we've countered it with something. That's a Cold War tactic. So, it's dating back to like the Korean War, where we took South Korea and the Russians took North Korea. We had East and West Germany during World War II. That were West Germany or, whatever.
Right. Yeah.
One side took one side, we took the other.
Which like was kind of crappy, though, because nobody considered the people that actually had to live there.
I
Unfortunately.
Agree.
It was
I agree.
In my opinion, it was a complete
We've talked about those on previous podcasts about North Korea is now supported by China for the most part.
Right.
Yeah. And they've, become the Herbert Kingdom. And whereas the South Koreans have been supported by the United States, I was stationed there for a year on the militarized zone in the Army. And they are very westernized or whatever.
Yeah.
Kind of like we were talking about off the podcast about like you build some roads there. And if you're playing chess and not playing checkers, if you start supporting their infrastructure, they look at other countries like, say, for example, if you go to the Ukraine and you said, hey, we support you. And we start saying, hey, we're going to pump some money into your infrastructure. Right. And you're no longer going to be like a former Republic of Russia that had a war factory there that lives on, 2 rubles a fucking year.
Right. Yeah.
And we have, you have a stockpile of former, Soviet nuclear weapons and nobody's gotten paid for a year. The guards that are there hadn't gotten paid for a year. We'll give you money. We'll help you rebuild your stuff. We'll bring in McDonald's or whatever it is. Right.
Who doesn't like McDonald's?
If we support you and we start paying the little money that it takes to pump money into their infrastructure to make them, well, one day it's better than what it was before. So yay, America. We start pumping some, Levi's jeans in there like we did in post Germany,
That's funny you said that because Germany loves Levi jeans. I don't know why.
That literally we pump, it's one of those things.
Like Levi's, but yeah.
So is that our angle? Is that we are trying to establish a foothold and get a jump off point, and we don't want Russia to go back to the Soviet Union. We don't want them to scoop up all those former Eastern Bloc Soviet countries.
Yeah, no. I think that's the idea is to prohibit Russia from being the old Soviet Union. At the same time, though, I think there's also some bad actors in the government right now that are making money off of it or have made money off of it, which. Again, yeah, exactly. It's going to happen. It's a thing.
Dare I say it?
It's,
when I was in Iraq, there's things like Halliburton, DynCorp, like all these things. You had Dick Cheney was like used to be on the board of like Halliburton.
Wait, are we allowed to talk about him yet? Has it been long enough?
I know is
we don't know.
KBR, Kellogg Brown and Root. All these things that happen. They're war profiteers.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
so
They'll probably cancel the shit out of us for talking about this, but that's truth. Nobody wants to talk about the war profiteers.
no, nobody does. It's a bad thing, which I fully understand, but it happens and it should be brought to light. But it's really hard to bring to light. And a lot of people, they don't understand it. Or when you tell them about it, they're going to be like, you guys are crazy tinfoil hat people, which is like, okay, you know what? Either look it up for yourselves, research it, or, you know what? Just call me crazy.
Well,
I really don't care.
If you want to go way off the deep end there, okay, every war has spurred the economy that we've ever gotten into. Every war that we've ever gotten into has spurred the economy somehow. That
is true.
Politicians, when they're not doing so well, they start losing favor. One, it promotes nationalism. In other words, all these divides that we have, the BLMs, all these things, racism and all this stuff all the problems that we're having suddenly fall by the wayside because now we have a common enemy. The whole country rallies together towards Iraq.
Well, see, Afghanistan. I think that's what this, wait, hold on. Ned Flanders. Ned Price, not Ned Flanders.
Ned Flanders, I think he's from Ned Simpsons. Maybe he is Ned Flanders.
Okay,
I don't know.
Well, I'm just going to call him Ned Flanders. Anyway, so Ned Flanders from the State Department made this claim. And if you watch his face while he's talking about it, he's either hiding something, he's lying, or he's not being truthful. There's something really weird going on.
Honestly, there. I think it goes back to your first thing where he basically was given a narrative and told to say it.
All right, so he got a boot to the ass and was just shoved out. In front of everybody.
If you are the face of the State Department, or if for whatever reason you happen to be
the face of the State Department,
well, if you happen to be the guy
he looked like a toddler.
If you're like the White House,
I think he was
White House spokesperson, right? Okay. Which is probably the most horrible job I could think you.
I think it is because the last two we've had, so a lot of people made fun of.
Good, bad, or indifferent.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter.
Honestly, and the thing is nothing against them. They're handed a script.
Yeah,
right. The problem is though is they can't possibly. They're trying to find the best person that can answer a question, the off-key questions, or handle it the best. Because I can give you a script.
This is gonna be insane. What if they just told the truth?
Oh, I agree. But I'm just saying, if you're given a script and you're thrown out there in front of the crowd.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Feeding that person lions.
And they say, hey, we're going to make this announcement. Here's the announcement. And they print it off on like 2 pieces of paper.
Right. Yeah.
You cannot possibly have answers to everything when you don't have in other words, if you don't have a state controlled media that's not also fed questions.
Oh, yeah. So if we were like China, then he would have done great.
Awesome,
probably.
Right?
Yeah.
They would have took that as fact. They would have ran it on all the state-sponsored whatever. Problem is here in America is
we got questioned.
We're jackasses, and we're going to ask tough questions, or we should now.
No, so I thought that part was amazing. Was actually somebody from the press actually questioned
I feel
what
like
he was saying.
We did have a state-sponsored media for a while, and we still, for the most part, do. But somebody went off script.
Yeah, I know, right?
Right. And he asked him the question. Well, here's the thing is if you're thrown out in the front with this 2-page thing of what we're going to announce, you can't possibly have like on that 2 pages, you're not going to possibly have the answers to all the questions.
No, and honestly,
uncontrolled.
I don't see how that guy could have possibly even had the answers to it.
And the funniest thing about that journalist is he just basically asked the question because the guy was referencing previously unclassified material.
Right. Yeah.
Which is super weird because I just don't think they unclassify stuff that quickly from my military experience.
No, and that's the weird part. It's been declassified. Yeah. You have access to it. And it's like, where's it at? And he could not answer that.
And he kept saying, I just told you. Right. And I think obviously what the reporter was saying is, do you have a link to the document on the State Department's website that where it's declassified and it says what your precursors, in other words, what your information that led up to this information, because you're saying it's all based on that previous information. Because that was his big question was he's like, okay, you're making allegations right now on things that haven't happened yet.
Right.
What has happened to make you so bold to make accusations?
Yeah.
Like you would think that at this point, like you just don't go haphazardly throw allegations out without having some serious backing to it.
I don't think you would, but same time too, I think maybe it's possible that it was one of those things where they hoped that nobody would deep dive into it. Actually, that wasn't even a deep dive. That was just a dip your toes into the water.
They rolled the dice and they lost.
Well, yeah.
And on top of all that, this guy that's supposed to be the face of this, the public speaker for the State Department, I honestly think that he had that like deer in the headlight.
Yeah, he should not have been put in that situation.
Was like, never in a million years would I thought somebody would actually ask me where the website was for the previously declassified information, right?
And he's like, well, I am the law. I told you.
Yeah. And then on top of all that, he was like talking about, them basically staging something. Right. And he said, the journalist calls him out and says, this sounds like some Alex Jones stuff.
Okay. So again, Alex Jones, man, he has some whacked out ideas.
He does.
But at the same time, Alex Jones, I hate to say this,
he gets it
right so many times.
He gets a home run once in a while.
I was like, wow, darn it.
He gets a home run once in a while.
You know what?
Now, with that being said,
I would love, if we could just sit down with Alex Jones sometime.
Oh, yeah.
For like 3 or 4 hours. Have some, I don't know, Elijah Craig, and we just chill
passion,
out.
Man, I love that guy's passion. He gets fired up, man. He's just like me. He gets fired up about stuff like that. That's amazing. Too.
So, and he has a reason. He has a place he's coming from.
Yeah.
But so having a reason in a place you're coming from, the guy from the State Department, he had no place he was coming from and no reason, except for, in my mind, it felt like he's just talking out of his ass. Somebody kicked him out in front of the spotlight.
That's what I said.
And like, read this script and just go with it. But as soon as he got questioned, he had nowhere to go with it. You can, again, watch his body language. And I'll splice the clip in. That's a classic example
is like maybe inter-office politics. Somehow he was sucking up in that day. Maybe they saw him like a day earlier on some PowerPoint presentation that he gave, and he just murdered that PoperPoint investigation.
Right. He made the world's best pie chart, and
he did. And so they're like, you know what, you are going to be our spokesman. And then he probably got overconfident because then they gave him like the 2 sheets, and they were like, hey, can you hit a home run with this?
You know what? That may have happened.
And he did the old classic, gave him a wink and was like, I got you, bro.
He's like, I'm going to wink my way through this.
I got you, bro. I can handle this. Right. What he did not anticipate, and where the whole I got you, bro, fell by the wayside, is when the old boy said, this sounds like some Alex Jones stuff. Where can I get this information at?
Exactly. Somebody went to him and was like, all right, I'm going to give you the Magnum condoms. Fill it. And he's like, oh, shit. Nope, I can't fill the Magnum condom.
Yeah, no.
Can I get the Snugger Fits?
Yeah.
Because they're super small.
The whole point of the stage thing, too, is he said it like he had an air of arrogance. Like,
no, it was
like the United
arrogant.
States the United States has never done anything like that before.
Can we talk about that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. He did it. He did it basically like he basically said that these people are terrible because they're going to stage something, and it's going to give them the right to invade the Ukraine. They're terrible people for doing that. That's what I got from it.
That's that's kind of what I got from it.
Yeah.
At the same time, though, I think we're dumping some gasoline on the fire.
Oh, I agree. But again, if you forget history, it's destined to repeat itself. Us in the United States shouldn't be pointing fingers so much with the history of.
No, we definitely should not be.
With the history of like the Gulf of Tonkin. And again, I'm referring to all these historical facts.
No, which I think is awesome. But why is it that mainstream news, mainstream media, mainstream anybody is not pointing towards these things?
I don't know.
So
well, the thing of it
what happens is we
got to be
look
comfortable
like
with your faults.
We look like we're lunatics when we broadcast this, when we put it out there.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, they're not going to look into it. They're just going to be like, oh, those guys are crazy. But then at the same time, if they actually looked into like, oh crap, that has happened in the past. It's happened before. And it's playing out right about now. It's like,
I mean, let's not,
why?
let's not bring up the fact of the weapons of mass destruction, which was the precursor to the war I went to in Iraq.
Well, I think a lot of people,
and we
like
found
to
no
think
weapons of
that
mass destruction.
There was weapons of mass destruction. There was.
Well,
the U.S. went and mass destructed a whole entire country.
Okay, well, no, we actually did find like certain things while we were there, but they were not what you consider, precursors to invading another country.
Okay, well, see, that's the other weird thing. And
well,
we'll hop
we
off
did
this
do is
point
make
here in a second, but
private individuals made a shitload of money off of the war.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm ruffling some feathers right now. We most likely are probably going to get demonetized or even kicked off of YouTube for.
Yeah, we'll probably get arrested.
Because dare I say it, the truth hurts sometimes, right?
No, the truth
and I am
hurt.
by no means anti-American or talking down about. The problem is you got to recognize the fact that you've made a mistake and just not do it anymore.
Right. Yes. Exactly.
Or in this case, glass houses. You know what I'm saying? Like don't go calling out the Russians on doing some kind of what they think may happen with some crisis actors and all this, which is hilarious that they use the term crisis actors. Hilarious.
Yeah, that was so Hollywood. It's like,
well,
they
basically made
best
that
you guys could do.
They basically said people were crazy if they use the term crisis actors or like active shooter situations at schools and all this kind of stuff. I'm pretty sure. I mean, the crisis actor thing, I thought came from Alex Jones. I literally thought it came from Alex Jones when he was talking about I can't remember one of the active shooter situations that happened, the school shooter things that happened.
Man, I don't know. I'd have to look into that. Did he get shut down for that?
Yeah.
Saying that word?
Yeah. He was, they made him sound like a horrible person because he used this term like crisis actors. And there was some kind of weird thing where there's a bunch of memes going around on Facebook of showing like all these pictures of what they thought was the same person at whatever series, whatever happened at school shootings. Apparently they no longer exist because we had a whole boatload of them for a while.
Well, ask Jen Pasamamanaki and she will tell you that that's not even a thing.
Yeah, well,
she will.
And again, I'm not taking anything away from, I spent many years teaching law enforcement. I was an active shooter instructor, patrol response to an active shooter. So by no means is not a serious thing, and it's not a real thing.
It's beyond a serious thing.
I'm just saying, if you put emphasis on certain things, or if that's all you see in the mainstream media, you're going to feel like whatever that incident is happening every other day.
Right. Yeah.
And statistically wise, nothing has changed. It's just not getting reported on.
Oh yeah, exactly. It's kind of so Joe, she'll get up in the morning and sometimes hopefully I follow behind her and I'm like, hey, how's it going? And she'll say, hey, did you hear about the news? And I'm like, what news? And it's always doom and gloom. It's just craziness. It's like, well, 2 more people got murdered by certain people. And it's like, well, that's not a surprise by any means. But when you think about it, it's like, actually, that's not a surprise because it happens, every probably 2 seconds out of the day. But the news, that's all they're going to.
Brother, they figured out a long time ago.
Where's the puppy dog news channel?
Well, the problem is they figured out a long time ago. You remember like when we were kids, even in like the 90s, they would have the reporters coming on. And they were talking about some local, chili cook-off, right? And they were reporting that chili cook-off in Indianapolis. And they have like a reporter out there and they're breaking him into them live every once in a while out there. And they're like, this chili's pretty good. Chili cook-off, right? That does not get as much ratings or as views in our day and age and with the algorithms and whatnot as the doom and gloom.
Oh, goodness. So are you...
It's like the clickbaity headlines and all that kind of stuff.
It's kind of like we've all gone towards Hunger Games, where some of us like Hunger Games are bad, and then other people are like, no, we want to see people get just murdered and destroyed. That's probably about right.
We're going to the simple social media terms of like the term engagement. Engagement in social media terms is used as like how many people react to this. Like they don't even have to watch the video. They just have to click on it and maybe they click off of it. They don't like the sound of the person's voice is talking or whatever. But the fact that they interacted with that as an engagement, they have found, dare I say it, us as human creatures will see two headlines. The old Indianapolis chili cook-off happening today, and it's got a video with it, or the one right below it, and it says 2 dead on the east side. Guess which one is going to have more likes, clicks, interactions?
That's kind of sad because I would rather hear about the chili. Can I have some good chili?
Well, the problem is mainstream media is dying.
Man, they should be, because they're not dying. Reporting news. They're making up news. They're fabricating. They're the koi fish that's in your little pond. Well, that's managed on a hot summer day has managed to flop itself out on the cement sidewalk, and it's like flopping, right? And it's breathing its last, breath of air. Well, and it's going to do whatever it has to do to survive. In this case, I don't feel bad for them. Yeah. They've done it to themselves.
I mean, again, I get super dramatic about this, but it's a proven fact that the engagements on social media have changed the way social media, or in this case, like mainstream media, it's more engaging. They get more response from anger than they do likes. Like in other words, feel good stuff does not get the same engagements as stuff that's going to ruffle your feathers. Man, that's where the whole clickbait. Where the whole clickbait, putting something underneath a title underneath a video that's maybe completely false.
Right. There's
whole social media influencers that's made whole influencer careers about, my girlfriend, bends over, and they're like, people are like, I want to see that.
Girlfriend bends over.
And they click on it, and and it'll have like the snapshot of the the headlining video of her like bending over and starting to bend over in a Ferrari or something. And you're like, I want to watch that. And they click on it. And it never shows anything. It's the next thing you know, he's talking about some new Lamborghini he got.
Right.
And that still picture is her, doesn't show anything. She just sits down in the passenger seat. Right.
Which is kind of sad too. It's like, why did you click on that? Because if you really want to see somebody doing that,
we are filthy animals. So, I am the guy that's going to click on that. Right.
Oh, no.
Don't click. We're filthy animals. Right. And I'm my own worst enemy. We are our own worst enemy. But if you have that video next to a video of some guy with the 4-H fair, even though they're doing some rally for some kids that's got leukemia, and it's got some video of like a parade of them driving to, cars driving by with the support, it will get 200 views. And then, and then the lady possibly bending over into the Ferrari will get like 1,000,005 views.
Right. Yeah. I don't understand how that happens.
I mean, I could dive real deep and say that, that literally goes back to like, you ever seen the movie Faces of Death?
Yeah.
Like
the original one. Yeah.
Yeah. It was stupid. And it was like, basically a bunch of people dying or something horrible, banned in like a lot of places.
I think the worst part of that was the monkey getting smacked on top of the hammer.
Well, the thing of it is, though, is people wanted to see that. Like,
well, yeah, it's not something.
A movie like that would just die if people.
I mean, it's
like anything else. Anything will die media wise if you just don't engage with it.
Right. Yeah.
It'll die. Mainstream media is dying right now because they've had their limit of the same regurgitated, whatever, one-sided, whatever, right? People are finally, I feel like we're finally hitting the turning point where when you have people on the left that's turning on their own party, right? And then you have people on the right that may have been, maybe like the extremists for a hot minute, like the, Trump fans or whatever. They are like, you know what? He's not the best or whatever. Maybe they're starting to like kind of turn, and both left and the right are being like, what happened to the days when you could just like either like something or not like something? Like, why am I defined? And I'm going to break it off into politics, but why am I defined by my political affiliation? Why do I have to be, put into a box.
No, I think
right?
that's the other weird part too. Is yes, so definitely for whatever reason, people want to put you in a box. They're like, "Are you left? Or are you right? Are you Democrat? Are you?" It's like, no, I'm common sense.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing:
can I just be common sense and just intelligent?
Even if you tell me that you're left leaning, in other words, you feel like you're more of like a liberal versus a Democrat. Why does that meaning the minute you use the term left, why do I throw you into people burning down, cities or believing everything that, the Democrats say? Or same thing is prime example is just because I say I feel like I'm maybe more conservative.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't make me some dude in Charlotte like carrying a torch and being like,
no, it does
whatever.
Not. I mean, so I'll just go and say it's like I didn't vote for Trump. Actually, I didn't vote for anybody. But at the same time, because I follow financial markets, I understand. I realized that what Trump had done in that time period helped out the U.S. financially. And so that's why I would support his thinking and his ideas.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when somebody starts bashing on Trump, which, you know what, teach their own, that's fine. But I'll say something like,
that's why people are turning away from hard stances on those parties.
He did a lot for our country financially. Yeah. And I always hear the same kind of arguments like, well, he was stupid, or they don't actually see that part of it. And I fully get it. We've
talked about this before, is they didn't actually delve into like the policies.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to do. It's like,
and I would
like to say Biden has done something intelligent or smart for this country, but unfortunately, I haven't found. And it's not that I don't like him.
And the thing of it
has nothing to do with that.
If somebody brings something to my attention that he has done that I feel like, benefits. Again, I'm not left or right.
Yeah.
So if he's brought something to my attention that I personally agree with,
no, exactly,
I'm okay with saying, hey,
I am
did
also.
this.
It's like,
right?
Okay,
but it's not a hill that I'm going to die on.
Right.
Just because I agree with him on one thing doesn't mean I am now left leaning liberal, whatever, hard right liberal, I should say, or hard left, or hard, hard left liberal, hard right.
Like, let's just get rid of all these terms. It's like common sense. Does this make sense for this country?
That's exactly.
Does this make sense for the people in this country? Yes or no? It's it's really not that. In my mind, and I know I way oversimplified it by saying that, but that's
it's weird. Everything in history prior to this, last few elections, there's always been a huge majority of people that are kind of moderate or kind of in the middle. And the whole point of politicians is they're the hard part of their jobs. If you're a Democrat, you don't have to work real hard. If you have a really hardcore Democrat group, you don't really have to work for them. You are working for the people that are on the fence, right? You're trying to sway people to your side. So you're not defined. The hard people to get was the moderates, because you wanted to tell them something that they wanted to hear to get them to vote for you, right? Somehow, somewhere along like the last couple of elections, there's been like a hard divide down the center where the minute you say, well, I kind of agree with like, what Obama's saying. Oh, well, you're lumped with the dudes burning down cities, right?
Know, right?
Or if you say, horrible. You know what? Everybody I've ever known has been a Democrat, but I kind of agree with, even though Trump's, spewing all this stuff, I kind of at the gas pump or, whatever, like, I feel like he's, doing something for the economy. Now all your, so-called liberal friends are being like, oh my God, you're a racist. So they lump them into these super extreme versions of the left or right. Guess what? There's a whole lot more of us out there that are in this gray area. Those are fringes. They used to call them fringe elements of the Democratic Party. They're fringe elements.
Well, unfortunately, right? I think when you say the word fringe now, it seems fringe means extreme, unfortunately.
Yeah.
in a lot of people's mind, which it shouldn't mean extreme, which I understand fringe
Well, I
means
use the term
outside
fringe
part
whereas they are extreme. But the fringe element meaning at the very edges that are super hard left or super hard right that just drinks the,
I see what you're saying.
You see what I'm saying? That's the fringes that I'm talking about. Everybody else falls in the center. They may be more apt to they're more, apt to go liberal as far as like their policies and whatnot. And you have other peoples that are more apt to, and most of that is based off of your day to day, right? You're probably going to be more, if you're more blue collar, you're probably going to be more Republican, right? But that's not necessarily true because some people, they vote Democrat because Democrats used to run the what do you call it? Jimmy Hoffa, they used to run the unions.
Oh, unions.
Right.
Well, okay. So why do we need unions in this day and age? I mean, honestly, I don't think anybody could possibly tell you.
Unions had a strong basis back when employers they had skilled laborers.
Well, no. So
they had skilled laborers that were taught a skill that were a very specific skill and should have been paid a little bit more than the problem with it was back in the day where you go to work at a factory, you get taught a skill of, machining or whatever for a certain job. And you're getting paid the same as the person at McDonald's.
Well, no. Well,
and companies would take advantage of that and pay you the same as what you were getting paid at a non-skilled job. So unions came in and basically said, hey, no, you deserve a little bit more because you've been here because of the apprenticeship program for, said machining job takes 5 years and you've been here 5 years. You've learned this stuff. You're now you're no longer apprentice. You're like a whatever. You've learned a skill.
I may have possibly looked back further than you have.
Yeah.
From what I understand, which I could be corrected, maybe I'm way off, but the union was created for back in wartime era when people were being mistreated at their jobs.
Yeah.
Was for human rights in a workplace.
Oh, yeah,
it had nothing to do with actually your skill level. It had to do with, all right, well, because we have to make X amount of bombs, then my employer, they want me to work 24 hours and I can't stay awake 24 hours.
Yeah, it's like
unsafe.
Yeah.
We're no longer in that era. We've been out of that era for so long. And I understand what you just said about
I knew that perspective because I came from a dad that was like a machinist and all this kind of stuff. And, there are certain times in maybe it paid a little bit more or something than somebody that worked whatever. Right.
No, I get
he had a skilled trade. And the thing of it is like a lot, the unions basically kept him from, again, it was like a violation of the company, or of the business versus the workers.
Well, I think
it protected them because he came in and learned a skill and it protected them where they basically said, hey, I can get somebody else in here to do your job for half the money or whatever. And so the unions, got together and did like a contract. So it was still the same basic idea is they were protecting the workers from said businesses that were using them up. They were, they wouldn't pay them overtime. They actually have union agreements that says, hey, if we work any more than it's still to this day with railroads and like certain things like that, or that are union jobs.
Yeah.
If you work any more than X amount of hours, part of your union agreement says you will get, the next however many days off, or you'll be paid, time and a half for any hours over. And then anytime you get any more hours over than that, then you're paid triple time or whatever it is. So it's a protection for employees. So I kind of get it.
No, it is a protection, which what you said, it's a protection for
still doing
employees.
The same thing. I think it's just,
I don't believe it is. So how many companies have been shut down because of unions? So I worked in a company that was union.
Yeah.
Actually, it was United Steel Workers, whatever the hell that was. Auto Workers, sorry, not Steel. So I had to pay these union dues, which were astronomical. At the same time, too, there were people there, and this was the basis of what they got paid was how long they were there. It wasn't based on the quality of their work or what they actually did. I mean, literally, there were people that would, they could probably literally just come to work and sit in the parking lot and smoke cigarettes all day long and not go in and do anything.
Wage. Yeah.
And they would get paid $40-$50 an hour because of the union. And then you had people like me that would get paid $2 or $3 an hour. And we had to go empty hot vats of cow chum. I'm making that up, but so it made zero sense. There was no reason. The union wasn't doing anything for anybody except for collecting union dues in my mind. But at the same time,
historically speaking, the part of that went south when the mob got involved in union, the Jimmy Hoffas, and they organized and like whatever. It was originally, I think, for a good idea. But
I think
then they started using essentially as extortion.
Well, I think OSHA took over that part of it.
Yeah.
So if OSHA actually did what OSHA is supposed to do and not try to tell people they have to get shots. Sorry. But so if OSHA actually focused on workplace safety, which is what the union originally was formed to do, was workplace safety, there's no room or place for.
Well, because they have OSHA, that's no longer a concern. So now they focus on job security.